How should we approach conversation with a skeptic who doesn't believe in psychic abilities and the supernatural? Should we even address the topic with them? Is it important? And how should we view the spiritual path of a skeptic? What is enlightenment like for them? Let's talk about it on Third Eyesight. My name is Juan Francisco, and I'm a psychic medium and tarot card reader. I've always been curious about the supernatural, the paranormal, and psychic abilities, and I'm here to share my stories and interview folks who want to share their own stories with us. Let's get to it. Hey, party people. I hope you're all well, and hope your week is going delightfully, or your weekend, whenever you're listening to this. This past weekend, I treated myself to a day at the beach at Rockaway Beach here in New York City. It's in the borough of Brooklyn, and it's my go-to beach spot. I just take the New York City ferry system. It's about a 2-hour ride, and I get to be on a boat for two boats for 2 hours total, and I could sit on the top deck enjoying the outdoors, or if I'm tired of the sun, within the boat, and it's really nice. So for those of you who visit New York City, you should definitely take the New York City ferry system. It doesn't take you everywhere, but it takes you to Wall Street, to Queens, where I live in the borough of Queens, to Brooklyn, to other parts of Manhattan. It's not like the subway system where it goes everywhere, but it's a lovely ride, and you can ride on the top deck and enjoy the wind in your face on the river. It's really lovely. That's how I get to the beach. And I also saw the Barbie movie, like every other person and soul on this planet. It was very cute. I liked it. I thought it was very clever. So I recommend going to go see it because it is a visual spectacle, and it's adorable. It's an adorable movie. I have not seen Oppenheimer, so I have not done the Barbieheimer thing yet. I won't ever do it because people are seeing it back to back, both of them back to back, right? I did not do that. So I'll see Oppenheimer at another time. So into today's topic we go. Skeptics, and how we should deal with skeptics, what it means to be skeptical. Well, I first want to say that I call myself a skeptical believer. A lot of you will notice that in my readings with you one-on-one, or in readings on Instagram Live or social media live, I'm often hard on myself because things will come through, and even if it resonates with the person, mostly I want something to resonate 100%. Now I'm working on that. I need to not be hard on myself, but that's the part of me that's skeptical. Like, I hear you, and that's great that it relates to you, but I want to get something a little more, so then I keep going. And that's the skeptical part of me that's like, I need something to come through. Something needs to come through that will validate what we're talking about in this reading. And when people tell me about their ghost stories, I always like to think, okay, is there any possibility that the person's environment at home, emotional, physical environment, mental approach or mindset, just mindset in general, can those be contributing factors to what someone is experiencing in their home, quote unquote, supernaturally, paranormally? And I spoke to paranormal investigator Lloyd Auerbach about a couple months ago, and I published our episode on this podcast. And he talked about how sometimes someone will report that they have paranormal activity in their home, and they call someone like him, and sometimes he learns with his team that there was a draft in the house, a draft of air, or the floorboards were installed at a slight angle, so it always would feel like the person felt off walking into a room and they didn't realize that the floor was constructed at an angle, you know? So I think as a skeptical believer myself, I like to think of what are different factors that could be contributing to this experience this person is having. And if I can rule out all those factors, then this must be a supernatural event. That may surprise you to hear that because I am a psychic medium. I believe this is possible to channel the deceased. And I think a lot of the times many psychic mediums portray this idea that they have no doubt in what happens. And I would like to get to that point. I really would. I do have faith, but I also have some doubt. I want to make sure that what's happening is actually happening and that it's not, I mean, especially for a sitter, for someone I'm reading, I don't want something to come through and it doesn't really resonate, but then I take advantage of how much it resonates. Maybe it resonates 50, 60% for them. And I kind of hop onto that and make that a thing when I could be getting something stronger that could really validate something for them. It kind of goes back to being ethical, but I don't want to go into that right now. I just want to share that I think it's great for a medium to have a lot of faith and absolutely no doubt. And I don't think it's so much about doubt that I have. It's just like I want to make sure that what's coming through is really going to validate for somebody, or that what's happening in their home is actually happening. Is not just like the worst thing I could do is someone says they have a ghost in their home who keeps moving things around, things on the table, whatever it may be. And then I tell them, oh, if things are moving around in your home on their own, then it must be paranormal. And then I make up this narrative. I start to think to myself, oh, maybe this is something that is stuck in your home, right? So you need someone to clear it out. Lo and behold, maybe it's their cat that's moving some object around that they never expected their cat to touch. Maybe the cat is picking up their glasses and putting them in their bedroom once in a while, then putting them in the kitchen. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I just made that up on the spot just now. But I could easily be that person that's like, oh yeah, it's a ghost, and tell you to do this, this, and this to help clear your house of this ghost. When maybe there isn't even a ghost that is stuck in your home, or an entity that's stuck, a poltergeist. Maybe it's just your cat moving things around and you never, ever, ever expected your cat to pick up your eyeglasses and put them in different places in your home. That's the part of me that's like, well, let's talk about this. Do you have any pets? Are your kids moving things around? When you feel cold air coming in the room all of a sudden, have you checked the cracks on the edges of your windows? Are there any cracks in your windows where air could come in the wintertime? These are all really important things to consider. So I am a skeptical believer. So when it comes to interacting with skeptics, I have received a couple comments on social media from, well, one of them I knew what their belief system is. They're a Christian, and they commented on a YouTube video of mine saying that what I do is demonic, and they hope that I see the light one day and come to Jesus. Little do they know that I have believed in Jesus the way they did in my life before. And I've talked about that on the podcast too, that I was once a born-again Christian. And I kind of wonder, I mean, what's interesting to me is that I'm an openly gay man, and I'm also a psychic medium. So I don't know about you all, but to me, it's obvious that I'm a gay man. If I met myself for the first time, like, oh yeah, he's gay, but maybe that's me being stereotypical. I think I'm obviously gay. The way I talk, the way I express myself physically with my hands as I'm talking, and the way I just express myself. I really tap into the feminine part of me. And for a lot of people who are very traditionalist Christian, this idea of like men do this, women do that, men talk this way or act this way. There's that layer. And then there's the other layer of psychic abilities are demonic. It's just interesting that this one person, me thinking I am obviously a gay man, this person just focused on how demonic my psychic practices. And I just kind of wonder if people really know the full story about me. Like, you think you're going to convince me that my psychic mediumship is demonic? I'm also a gay man. So let's say you were to convince me that this is demonic, well, I'm still a gay man. You're still going to disapprove of me. So what's the point of listening to you? And sometimes I will comment back on those comments. Actually, most of the times I do, and I say something sweet, kind, but direct. And actually, I will pull up for you right now, as you're hearing me click on my computer, what I did say to that person's comment. Oh, my computer's asking me to sign in. I don't even know if I can access it right now, but I remember that I made a comment that I believe, alluded to my experience as a born again Christian. That I have been through all that before. I've been through the questioning. I've been through it. And I've been through feeling like all this stuff is demonic. And I can't believe I'm doing this, y'all. Right while I record on this podcast, I am literally typing in my login so I can read you guys the comment that I made on this person's response to my video. I don't know. It's just it's interesting. Here it is. I found it. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm trying not to edit these podcasts as much anymore, so this is the real deal. It's really me. I'm trying not to sound too pretty in my podcast, so you're getting the real raw podcast episode as I'm typing in my login, and now we're here. This person said on my YouTube video about hell, the existence of hell. The classic, I don't believe in it, so it doesn't exist. I hope you come back to Jesus and work through that trauma in your life and realize that this spiritualism that you are practicing is demonic sooner rather than later. He did a heart emoji and then a crying face emoji. And I just responded, I hope you live in peace and don't feel the pressure to tell people how to live their life. It's very personal and does not affect you. Heart emoji. They responded, Juan Third Eye, I'm not the one telling people how to live their life. The word does. The word capitalized the word. And I know that to be the Bible based on my own personal experience. And it states explicitly how we should do so. Okay, let me reread that. I'm not the one telling people how to live their life. The word does. And it states explicitly how we should do so. I will never shy away from telling people that they are not living for Jesus, no matter how personal, quote unquote, personal their lifestyles are. Heart emoji, Band-Aid emoji. I don't know what the Band-Aid was for. And I responded as the last thing in this mini conversation. Let God do the work without judgmental human interjection. He will bring folks to light. And I did the prayer hands. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. So I'm trying to be a little sweet, but also be very direct. Like maybe I'll get to a point where I'll get so many of these comments that I can't get to them and it's too tiring and it's too taxing mentally. I have a friend who gets a lot of comments like this. They call her a witch. They call her horrible names. And she just has to ignore them. I don't get that many comments to feel overwhelmed by them. Maybe I will soon. Maybe one day. But while I have the time and the bandwidth and almost like the desire to respond, I will respond. And Hannah McIntyre talks about this on her podcast where people ask her, like, why are you responding? You're bringing down the energy. And it's like, you know what? I'm sorry, but if I'm in public, and she put it perfectly, if I'm in public and someone comes up to me and starts harassing me, I'm just going to sit there and take it? Absolutely not. And for me to delete people's comments to me is not very authentic of me. I would never just delete people's comments unless it is something that is hurting another person or harming another person. Something really nasty and racist or homophobic or, if it's homophobic, it's insulting me and I can do whatever I want with that comment. But if it's racist, if it's just a horrible, nasty comment, I'll delete it. But if it's just someone expressing their opinion that disagrees with mine, or they call me a fake, or they call me a witch, or they call me demonic, I'm going to respond. I'll keep it and I'll respond to it. I don't want to hide from that. I'm not going to create this safety bubble where none of that exists on my social media. I want to have those challenges. I think it's healthy to have those challenges to a certain extent. So if I feel like commenting or responding to a skeptic or to a very religious conservative person who feels the way this person did on YouTube, I'm going to do it. Especially because I'm in this unique position to have been that person who was a conservative Christian. So I understand where they're coming from, and I'm gently but firmly correcting them because I understand how they feel. It's interesting to be in that position, this position I'm in, to have had that experience, those feelings before myself. How about skeptics and happiness. Okay, that's really really vague. Let me explain. I have heard that, well, I've heard some folks within this realm of things, psychic abilities. Well, I hate to use the phrase new age, but new age, new age spirituality. Some people I know have shared how, like, if someone doesn't believe in God or believe in an afterlife, they're living a sad existence. They're living in the dark. Now, I believe that practicing my abilities, but even just not even practicing my abilities, just believing that this is all possible and that there's an afterlife and that there's a higher power out there, that there's energy beyond our physical bodies, to me, that adds to my life. It's like a big, big, big freaking bonus. If I were to meet somebody, and I don't often do, honestly, but if I were to meet somebody who has no belief, doesn't believe anything that I believe, and has no belief in anything spiritual, I wouldn't think, oh, you sad, sad, sad thing. I may feel some sympathy for them, or I may feel sadness for them, because I think that it just adds so much to our lives to have this belief. But what makes me better or more or closer to the light? What makes me closer to the light than that person? I think enlightenment, that's different. I feel like I am on a path to enlightenment because of what I believe and what I practice. And I believe that someone who does not believe in an afterlife or in their own soul, the existence of their own soul, I think there is some cloudiness there. There is an obstacle on their path to enlightenment. But I say that with a lot of hesitancy because, I've met many people who say they are on the path to enlightenment, and they are not very nice people. They are not very kind people. And I've met people who don't believe in anything, and they're kinder than the people who believe in something. So who am I to judge a skeptic regarding their enlightenment? It's not up to me. I may have my opinions. Now, this is the thing I want to separate. I have my opinions about it. I do believe that them not believing in something is a stumbling block on their path to enlightenment. That's my opinion. The universe may have a way bigger perspective on that than I do. To the universe, it may not even matter whether they believe in something or not. It's kind of like when I was a conservative Christian, something I would see like in a meme often, or like as a saying, is when people say, I don't believe in God, you say, well, God believes in you. It's so cheesy, but that's what I believe. They may not believe in a higher power, but their higher power believes in them. And I don't believe that in a way that's condescending or like, oh, bless your little soul, poor soul, you. It's more like, no, the universe, God believes in you, whether you believe in it or not. So you're fine. You're okay. We're all going to end up in the same place. I don't believe there's any judgment on the other side for non-believers. I don't believe that one bit at all. I think it does make their physical life a different experience. And I'm tempted to say that me believing in this helps me navigate my physical life in a way that's easier or more manageable than it would be to manage if I didn't believe in all of this. And I'm very tempted. Well, that's not the thing I was tempted to say. That's how I feel. Now, the thing I'm tempted to say is someone who doesn't believe in this or believe in something bigger than themselves, I'm tempted to say that they may have a more difficult time managing life. But I use the word tempted for a reason, because it's not my place to really know that or to make a determination about that. I think it's so important when it comes to skeptics and non-believers to have a lot of grace with them, because God knows that I needed a lot of grace I have needed a lot of grace in my journey, and I still need grace on my journey. When I was a conservative Christian and an in-the-closet gay man, God knows I needed grace to go through that, to come out of it. And even today, I'm an openly gay man. I am a practicing psychic medium, and I believe that there's more to life than just our physical bodies and the physical environment around us. And there are things I still struggle with on a personal level, and I've talked about therapy, I've talked about mental wellness in my life. There are still things that I struggle with personally that sometimes feel like they're barring me from tapping into my fully authentic self, therefore being more in touch with my soul. There are barriers to that for me personally. So am I also, because I struggle with body image dysmorphia, I am so grounded in my body, physical body, to the point that I care too much about it, how it looks to people. Does that mean I am really not enlightened? Am I not enlightened enough? I refuse to believe that I'm not going to end up in a happy place in the afterlife if I never get over my body image dysmorphia, or I never get over my anxiety. Some people have their beliefs about taking prescription medication, that prescription medication makes you less enlightened. BS. BS. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. Who are we to judge what somebody needs to feel like they can manage life, as long as they're not hurting themselves or other people? Who are we to judge that? Who are we to judge a skeptic who is just fine not believing in anything? They're fine. They're living a happy life. That's the most important thing. As you do what you need to do to pursue a life or to live a life that brings you fulfillment and joy. And if that means believing in a God that's not mine, believing in practices that are not mine, you do you. Just do you. I think intention matters. If the intention is to not harm yourself or other people in any way, not just physical, emotional and mental, that's fine. I am going to end this podcast episode with a story. There was this, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but there was this person I was speaking to for a month or two. I was slowly becoming friends with them. And they were not a shaman, it was something else. But people would hire them to cast spells. And at first I thought, oh, not my thing. But you know what? Let me not judge, And by the way, me telling the story is not a judgment on people who cast spells. I have done a spell with somebody before, and it was wonderful. So please know this is not a judgment on that. It's this specific person that I had this experience with. So the more I got to know them, they told me a little bit about their clients. And one day they told me, we asked, what are you up to today? And I shared with him what I was up to. And he shared with me, I had a client today who hired me to cast a spell on their boss. And I think he described it as I forgot what the word was to describe the kind of spell, but whatever it was, it made me ask him, what does that do? And he said, well, it's a spell to have the person commit suicide. I got so uncomfortable. I got so pissed. And I just, within 15 minutes of him saying that, I ended the friendship. And he was very upset with me. He said I was judging. You don't know what it's like for someone to be oppressed. Because maybe his client was a person of color, or maybe was a part of a minority group. I'm not sure. But I was like, I'm sorry, but that's my limit. That's not okay. I'm not okay with that. And if you're someone who wants to take clients who ask you to do that and you're okay with it, I cannot be friends with you. I'm sorry. Sorry. This goes back to what I was saying about not doing harm to yourself or others. And again, this is someone who is spiritual, right? Who does this work. And I have met people who don't believe in anything, who would never want to hurt another person like that. Ever. I'm pissed just talking about it right now. And I'm not going to end it on that note. I'm going back to that moment. I've never really talked about it in depth like that with anybody before. Maybe one friend of mine. It upset me so much. I'm about to cry. I'm so upset. It was just so upsetting to me. And I don't care. I don't know how terrible that client's boss was. I don't know what they did to them. They could be the nastiest person on earth. And my heart is going out to them because I really hope that they did not feel any energy from that spell. Because no one deserves that. I really don't believe anyone deserves that. So my point is, skeptics, let's have grace with them, because a lot of us who believe in this stuff, we need a lot of grace. We have a lot of work to do on ourselves. A lot. We're human. We're all human. We're all humans on this journey. We're all souls having human journeys. And the last thing we should be doing is making people feel less than for not believing as we do. That's this kind of stuff I dealt with as a Christian in the closet, hearing from other Christians. I am not about to do that to people who don't believe as I do as a psychic medium. And what matters is, like I said, I'm going to repeat it, the intention, not doing harm to yourself or to others. And if a skeptic, a non-believer, lives like that, what's the big deal? Why do they have to believe as we do? That's when our ego starts to kick in. Our ego wants people to believe as we do so we could feel a little validated. I said that with some attitude, but it's true. It's true. And so let's put ego aside and just give people that grace. Whether they're people within the spiritual realm of things or people outside of it, they can believe as differently as they want to, as long as they're not harming themselves or other people. I want to end this podcast by giving you all loving energy. What I just discussed at the end of this podcast was really tough for me to share, so I could imagine it was tough to hear for some of you. I want to tell you that I love you all so much, and you make this podcast possible. I would be recording this even if I didn't have a lot of listeners, and I don't have a gazillion listeners. But I love doing this podcast, and the fact that you listen to it and download it makes it even more enjoyable to do, knowing that people resonate with it. And I love you for it. And I don't know you personally, not all of you, maybe one or two of you. I don't know you personally for the most part, but I'm sending a lot of love to you. And if you're going through something tough today, please know that you're not alone. And there are places that can help you and support you, people who want to support you, people who understand you. And I'm sending all of the loving, warm vibes to you right now. It's not about just getting positive, because that's not easy to just be positive. It's about letting yourself feel all the things, letting yourself feel what you're feeling, and giving yourself, again, the grace to feel what you're feeling, because you're human and you're allowed to feel the way you're feeling. And you are not the last or the first person to feel that way. You're not alone. And you have the right to feel the way you do. And you have the right to be honest and communicative with those around you about how you feel in a way that doesn't require them to validate you, but to comfort you. That's very out of step of what I usually do on this podcast, but I felt the need to say that after this podcast episode and the end of this podcast episode. I'm sending so much love to you and so much support. And the last thing I'll say is, you're psychic too. You're intuitive. You could speak to your loved ones. You don't need a medium. I'm just here to remind you that you can do this. And if you ever book a reading with me, it's only to remind you that you can connect with your loved ones. You have all the power within you. Love you all. If you have a question or topic you want me to cover on Third Eyesight, head to my website, juanfranciscospirit.com/contact, and send a message my way. If you really enjoyed this episode, leave a review wherever you listen. I'd really appreciate it.